show.
Welcome to episode 36 of the Gluttons for Punishment podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, we would really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you like the podcast, it would be a big time help if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is dropping some new content. All right, everybody, we are very, very close to the start of the regular season in the NHL. The Toronto Maple Leafs open the season on October 13th at home against the Montreal Canadiens. And this episode is going to be jam-packed. We're going to remind you about our special giveaway. You are definitely going to want to stay tuned for that. We're going to get into the last 3 preseason games involving the Leafs. Some new additions stepping up big time. So we'll get into that. We're going to talk about the All or Nothing Amazon Docuseries, which I'm sure a lot of Leaf fans have watched, even if you've hate watched it. I'm sure you've at least tuned into a couple episodes by now. And then we're also going to talk about Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators and that situation because he hasn't signed a contract yet. But before we get into all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Doing well, Anthony Bruno. We are getting closer and closer to the NHL regular season. So everyone has reason to be very, very excited of the 21-22 NHL season. It's going to be our first time in a while, hopefully anyway, that we get a full 82 games. So awesome. Just awesome. As you mentioned, episode 36. Shout out to Jack Campbell, the goalie who everyone loves. He's impossible to hate. He was a great acquisition by Kyle Dubas, and he's battling for a starting job now. So things are starting to turn around in the career of Jack Campbell. Also, a little side shout out goes to random number 36, Brendan Bell, who I went to high school with, Ottawa boy, played for the 67s, drafted by the Leafs, played in the World Juniors, spent some time with the Leafs. And it's actually pretty cool because I'm sure you remember Sandin's 500th goal in overtime against Calgary. Bell was in that game. So like the photo of like all the Leafs swarming mats after the winner, like Brendan's in that photo. And I was found that's like a cool little tidbit. But yeah, so episode 36, lots to talk about. And the next episode 37, is going to be a big one, a very big one. Tell them why, Bruno.
All right. Yeah. And Lepore, first of all, I love those shout outs. Awesome. Everyone loves Jack Campbell. And I didn't know that Brendan Bell was actually on the team that when Matt Sundin scored that 500th goal, because I actually may have shed a tear or two when Sundin scored that 500th goal.
We all did.
What a moment that was. But like you said, Lepore, episode 37 is very, very special because we are giving away an authentic Auston Matthews Toronto Maple Leafs home jersey. Now, we've been talking about this contest over the last few weeks. We've had a ton of entries so far, and we are so excited to give this away to one lucky supporter of the GFP podcast. And just to go over the rules again, you still have time to enter, but time is, of course, running out because we are giving this away on the next show. So if you want to enter the contest one last time, you must like this video. Do that right now. Smash that thumbs up. You must subscribe to the channel. And then in the comments section down below, you have to leave your Instagram handle, tell us where you're from, and what move you would make if you were GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs for one day. So if you want to enter the contest last minute, go ahead and do that right now. We will have the instructions down in the description as usual, but good luck to everyone who has entered. And to those of you who have yet to enter the contest, best of luck to you as well. We can't wait to give this away. All right. So that does it for that. Now it is time to move into some Toronto Maple Leafs talk. And we're going to start things off going back to the game on Wednesday, September 29th, Leafs in Ottawa. And the reason we must start with this game is because Michael Lepore, yes, the co-host of the GFP podcast, was at the Canadian Tire Center in the flesh, back in the building for the first time in a long time. So Lepore, how was it, man?
It was pretty fun, man. Took the nephew, like you said, first game in a while that we've been able to go to. And it was great to see the buds. Yes, that much of a geek, that much of a hardcore that I go see exhibition games for my favorite hockey team and I dissect them thoroughly. And it was a fun time all around, and just like the mood of like the buzz of a rink, the smells in the arena and all that. Like I love watching the warm-ups, like sitting close. So it was great, man. And it was a great result for the Leafs. We saw it was kind of like a B lineup, like all the stars stayed at home. But I was excited to get to see a lot of potential Marlies and a lot of guys who just been brought in. And they look good, man. I thought on all facets, the Leafs heavily outshot Ottawa. Bunting got that hat trick, 3 power play goals that everyone was talking about. Camp scored the other ones. That's another new name that hopefully we can get very familiar with in Leafland. And all in all, man, again, happy to be at the rink, happy to see the Leafs win. And I'm already booked for a few more games this season, so I can't wait, man.
That's awesome, man. Glad to hear you had a good time. You're sending me some pictures and texting me during the game. I was pretty jealous, I'm not gonna lie.
You're always welcome for a Battle of Ontario at the CTC, Bruno.
I gotta make the trip out to Ottawa at some point to watch a Leafs and Sens game. That would be awesome. But Lepore, man, the story of that game, Michael Bunting, like this dude. I mean, if you didn't hear about Michael Bunting, now you have, because this dude has been lighting it up in the preseason. He scored in his first game, hat trick in his next game, and he looks good. So when the Leafs signed Michael Bunting in the offseason, I went in and watched some of his highlights from Arizona, because let's be honest, who the hell is sitting there watching full Arizona Coyotes games? Now, you know, we've talked about this before. He had 10 goals in 21 games with the Coyotes last season. He tore up the AHL last year. And even going back over the last 3 or 4 years, he's been around a point per game player in the AHL. And it looks like he's slated to open the season in the Leafs top 6, most likely on a line with John Tavares and William Nylander. So I just want to ask you, Lepore, being there and seeing him in person, what was your impressions of Michael Bunting?
It's that weird thing that, and part of the reason why I love to go to the exhibition games is because you can see where players are at. Like, I remember it was a while back that I went to see the Leafs, and Liljegren was in the lineup, and it was clear that he was still way too raw and he wasn't ready. And it doesn't take long when you're watching to see the guys who really and truly are the NHL bodies and the guys who aren't. Bunting, to me, right away showed that he belongs in the NHL, and he deserves a regular spot. Where it will be in the lineup and how high it goes, we'll see, and that's up for a big discussion. I'm sure many will be had in Leafland, but I mean, the guy can finish. I mean, that was the one outlet. That was the one thing that sent alarm bells off when the Leafs acquired him, and so far so good. And the great thing was too about his performance is that they were all in the power play. Like, a big fear the Leafs have going into this year is the crappy power play to continue. And the fact that we bring this new guy in and he puts in 3 PP goals, I mean, it's awesome. And yeah, I know it's preseason, but it's better that they're scoring on the power play in the preseason than they're not. So I'm excited to see how Bunting turns out, man. It's an opportunity for him at the end of the day. Like, we talk all the time on this show about how certain guys, like, they're playing for jobs, they're playing for their NHL careers. This guy's got a shot, man. Like, he's going to be put with some good players, like you mentioned, if he gets put on a line with JT and Willie. So why not? I mean, if you're playing with those two and you're not putting up respectable numbers, I mean, what more do you need? So again, another reason to be excited, man, for the season, Michael Bunting.
Yeah, I'm super excited about Bunting because, like I said, when the Leafs first acquired him, I watched a lot of his video from last season, just the way that he scores goals. And the first thing I notice is how good this guy is around the net, whether it's just making plays in tight, in high traffic areas, whether it's tipping pucks from the point. And then you look at all the goals that he scored in the preseason. He has scored literally all the same goals that he scored last year, just watching his tape, playing for the Arizona Coyotes. He's very crafty around the net. And now he's going to get an opportunity to play with the best players he's ever played with in his career. And there were reports also in the offseason that he turned down bigger contracts from other teams because he wanted to play for the Leafs. And if you even go on his Instagram account, he posted a picture of him. I don't know. He was a little kid and he had like Leafs face paint on and he said, "I'm coming home." So again, another hometown kid excited to make an impact. And I was actually talking with one of my friends about this. Shout out my friend, Michael, not Michael Lepore, another Michael. We were talking, we're like, how many guys in the league have, let's say, 20 goal upside? And again, maybe you think Bunting is not even going to hit 10 or 15 goals, but how many guys have 20 goal upside who are signed for under $1 million a year, Bunting coming in at $950K, who aren't on an entry-level contract?
Right. Yeah.
And we started going through the list. It's maybe a handful of guys when you actually go through the league. And Jesse Puljujarvi was a name that came up to us as we were kind of just spitballing back and forth. Although I think he makes, one and change. But you start thinking about players around the league that have that kind of upside on that type of contract. And that's what gets me excited. It's just the value that Bunting can return coming in at a $950K cap hit. So again, we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, two things I really want to circle from that game that jumped out to me. And again, preseason, Josh Ho-Sang, that is a talented player, man. Like, we were sitting close just to see, like, when he's got the puck, he's just dancing around, his eyes are peeling. Just hopefully for that kid, he can like fine tune everything else, get his mind in check, and find his way into the NHL. Like, we found out yesterday that he's going down to the Marlies, and that was partly because the Leafs don't want him to go through waivers, so they can just put him down to the Marlies and then call him up when they need him. So I'm excited for that kid. I really am. I really and truly think he's going to get a real shot with the Leafs, and I think there's a good chance he's successful. The other thing was Rasmus Sandin on the point for the power play. We are done here. We are absolutely done with trying to galaxy brain what the Leafs should do up top on the power play. Rasmus Sandin is the guy at the top of the power play. Like, the way he plays, like almost like in this central role, which is kind of different. And they got those two guys on the side. They got the guy in the bumper and the guy in front. And every time the puck would go high, there was something. It's like he sees when he should make, almost like he sees it 2 passes ahead, I found, where it's like he'll see, okay, I'll go right, it'll go to the bumper, or I'll go right, it's going to come back to me, then I'll go left. Like, just awesome, man. And that shot, like, he's just throwing things on net like effortlessly, and seems like everything found its way through.
Yeah, he's got a better shot than Riley from the point.
Not even close. Yeah, like it's a threat. Like it's such more of a threat up there. And I mean, to me anyway, the discussion's over. Like, the Leafs power play number 1 has Rasmus Sandin at the top. No question about it.
Wow. So you're set, eh? You don't even want to entertain Morgan Riley getting another chance to run PP1.
Not on why. Like, at this point, like, the opportunity's been given, and with the Leafs lineup, even if Riley's on power play too, I mean, I'm okay with that, and I'm sure the Leafs are okay with that, and even him, who's on the second power play, it's still some pretty decent guys. So I think another positive for us going into the season, Rasmus Sandin, top of the power play. We're going to get an alert right after the podcast that he's been cut and he's going back to the Marlies.
Yeah, can you imagine? No, but I hear you, man, because listen, one thing I've always been critical of when it comes to Morgan Riley is his inability to shoot from the point, especially one-timers, slap shots. I'm not saying you have to unload a slap shot like your prime Shea Weber or Zdeno Chara, but you have to have that shooting threat from the point. And I think Sandin has proven, even though obviously his sample size is not nearly as large as Morgan Riley's in the NHL running a power play, I think he is more effective than Morgan Riley in that role. Now, it does sort of appear like Riley is going to begin the season in that role, just based on kind of the power play units I've seen tweeted out by some of the beat reporters, but they're very high on Rasmus Sandin. Yeah. I've seen reports on that as well. Like, they're excited about him. They want him to be a big contributor this season. And I think one of his biggest contributions is going to be on the power play. So
Yeah.
I'm with you there, Lepore. I really do think even if Morgan Riley gets the first crack, that Sandin is the guy that probably should be there most of the season.
Yeah.
All right, man. Yeah. So from that game, there wasn't really anything else. Like Peter Mrazek, 19 save shutout. That was nice to see.
Yeah.
I guess we can quickly go over the second game. Wasn't too much going on there. Jack Campbell had an opportunity to play the entire game. I'm referring to the Monday, October 4th game, also against the Senators in Ottawa. The Leafs won that game 3-1. The shots were 27 all. Pierre Engvall scored a couple of goals. Michael Amadio scored the game winner with a
One
minute
of them
25
assisted by Hosang, man.
left in regulation. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Josh Hosang, I mean, he's been really good, I think, throughout preseason. And again, we know now that he's going to start the season with the Marlies, but I think it's a slow process here. They wanted, again, they didn't want to expose him to waivers. And I think at some point, whether it's 20, 30 games in or whether an injury pops up, Hosang, I think eventually is going to get an opportunity to play on the big club. So yeah, Lepore, I mean, anything else really, any other players stick out to you specifically in that second game that you wanted to talk about?
No, I chose a pretty fundamental performance by the Leafs, like 3-1 win on the road with an empty net. They started really well. Like, I think at one point they were out shooting Ottawa. I think it was 8-1, and they were really snapping the puck around, coming in at waves. So it was fun to watch. I thought Brooks on that goal made a hell of a play, man, like on that winning goal. So like, there's another guy like not getting enough street cred. I don't know. You think Brooksy's going to get an actual shot with the Leafs this year? And when I say shot, I mean like more than a couple games of a call up.
I like Brooks a lot. And this is even going back to his time in junior with the Regina Pats. Like, he was unbelievable in the WHL. Go look at the point totals that Adam Brooks put up. Like, it's absurd. And
it was always kind of awkward. Like, people would debate about him because he's putting up like bananas numbers, but he was an overager. So they were like, well, how should we take it? You know what I mean? Because you're kind of supposed to be dominating. But I mean, again, kind of like I said before in the power play, better him dominate than not dominate.
Exactly. And he's not a guy that's going to be in the top six, especially on a team like the Leafs that has so much elite firepower in the top six. But you said it, man. I've been impressed with him in the preseason. And I actually just saw a tweet from Jonas Siegel, who said, like, the Leafs have made a number of cuts over the last few days, but they're now down to 17 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 2 goalies at main camp. Another thing I should mention, Michael Hutchinson was placed on waivers, but he cleared waivers. But anyway, in that tweet, Jonas Siegel said the bubble guys right now appear to be Michael Amadio, Pierre Engvall, Adam Brooks, Curtis Gabriel, and Timothy Liljegren, among a couple other guys. But it seems like Brooks is a bubble guy. But man, based on how he's played and even some of the flashes I've seen from him going back to last season, Lepore, I really think that he could be a really useful player on the Leafs fourth line. Like, I think they got to give him a real look here to make this team.
Yeah, he plays kind of like I said before about Bunting out. It's like, it's clear this guy's an NHLer. I don't know if I'd go that far with Brooks, but almost like he looks like he belongs, right? So I mean, I like him. I like the fact that he rocks number 77, and I like the fact of us having a guy named Brooksy on the team. But I think he'll get his shot, and I'm with you where I really think on that fourth line he could be very effective as a guy who's like popping in a goal here and there, provide some energy in some games, and maybe even some power play time because he's shown that he can score too.
Yeah, I think he's a real nice depth player. And another guy that I've always had a soft spot for, and some people have called me crazy about this, I'm a Pierre Engvall guy.
That's a hot take, man.
When
Pierre Engvall's reputation, Leafs Nation.
Like, I know people probably think I'm nuts, but this dude's 6'5", skates like the wind, can score goals. I mean, let's be honest, his finishing ability is not great by any means, but he flashed what he can do in this game that we're talking about, in this 3-1 win over the Senators, scoring a couple of goals. I know one was an empty netter, but having that speed, in your bottom six, and a guy that could also kill penalties as well, I think he's a very useful player. But again, like I was saying, it looks like he's one of these bubble guys, and who knows if Pierre Engvall is going to get an opportunity like we've seen the last couple of seasons. So still a lot to shake out here, specifically with the Leafs bottom six.
I'm pretty sure Engvall's at the point now where if the Leafs were to send him down, he'd have to clear waivers, wouldn't he?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So all of these guys, I believe, would have to clear. I could be wrong about maybe a couple of them, but
I don't think Liljegren maybe.
Even Liljegren, I think Liljegren has to clear.
He's at that age now. Wow. I mean,
yeah. So yeah, that's the thing right now. So if you're going to send some of these guys down, you're going to have to expose them. There's going to be some tough calls that have to be made here, Lepore. Some very, very tough calls. And, you know, you might think, oh, none of it matters. It's all depth guys. But honestly, the Leafs really haven't had this many viable depth guys that we've, you know, highly considered to make this roster like this late in training camp, especially going back over the last few seasons. So I guess it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
All right, man. So yeah, enough of that game. Let's move on now to the Leafs' last preseason game, Tuesday, October 5th. They returned home to host the Montreal Canadiens. And this was an absolute beatdown. The Leafs outshot the Habs 44-22. Just complete and utter domination. Nick Ritchie arrived in this last preseason game. Now, we didn't know exactly what to expect from him. He had a nice season with Boston last year, probably his best season so far in the NHL, but he showed you what he can do and the way that he is going to score goals this season, especially if he plays with Matthews and Marner. He scored a couple of goals in the first period. One was on that unreal pass from Marner.
Amazing.
Another was on a shot in the slot on the power play. So I think he was the big story coming out of this game. And like I mentioned, it looks like he's going to open the season on the left side with Matthews and Marner. So Lepore, what's your take on the play of Nick Ritchie and, you know, getting an opportunity to play on that first line to start the season?
That play for Marner, like what a pass. And Ritchie didn't have to do too much except for like angle his stick. And those are the types of goals he's going to get like in this season, the types of points he's going to get playing with those two. There's going to be a lot of garbage and he should be happy about that. But his second goal was on the power play. Again, good to see the new guys contribute on the power play. And they had him in the bumper position on that power play. And it was a quick shot goal. So again, nice to see. Ritchie's on that list, man. Like these guys are getting an opportunity. Ritchie was like crazy highly touted when he was drafted. Things didn't quite work out the way many had hoped for him in Anaheim. But here he is, man, playing with the buds and getting an opportunity with some good players. So high expectations, man. I think of all of them for him. Would you agree that there's the most pressure?
I think so. And maybe for the simple fact that he makes the most money out of all these new additions, all of these like quote unquote guys getting like a second chance.
Right.
He's coming in at the highest cap hit. What's his cap hit here? I have it written down somewhere. 2 years, $2.5 million. So I mean, it's not a lot, but you know, he's making 2.5 a season. That's basically double of, you know, what Kasha's getting, Kampf, Bunting for that matter. So like they're clearly committed to this guy and want him to succeed, specifically playing with their best players. So I agree. I think he probably does have the most pressure of all these new guys.
Yeah, the name too, right? Like everyone, again, from his junior career in the draft, everyone knows Nick Ritchie. Kind of like Jimmy Vesey, like maybe completely unfairly, but we had this kind of thing in us of like, oh, he'll be good just because like we know the name, and that happens often in sports. We get fooled by the name. But no, Ritchie, again, like you said, like that's his spot, like banging in a lot of garbage and hopefully just being a little workhorse on that line. The game, like you said, man, like the Leafs, again, preseason, but like the Leafs were flying, man. Like I made a note at one point, the shots were 41-14 in the third period. Like crazy, absolutely crazy. And like, again, different guys producing. One name, I like burst out laughing. How much are the commentators happy to see that this guy will probably not make the team? Aguchintsev. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Semyon Aguchintsev.
Oh, very good, Bruno. Way to show me up on the podcast. Just stick it right
SDA. I think it was Chris Cuthbert It may have been one of the other play-by-play guys who just said, screw it, I'm just going to call this guy SDA.
Yeah. That Brendan Manel kid, he scored that goal. Story with him is he was in the KHL last year. He was a good player in the KHL, again, getting an opportunity. And that last goal by Cini,
That was
what a
sick.
goal. Like out of the box, comes around, like forehand, backhand, right under the bar. What a goal. Like the Leafs, it seemed like there was quite a bit of Leafs fans at that game. Here in Ottawa, what they're doing is they're doing 50% capacity. So it's 9,000. Are the Leafs at 50% as well?
I believe it's
50%
like for both the Leafs and the Raptors at Scotiabank. I could be wrong, but I think it's set at 50% capacity right now.
It seemed like a decent crowd. Like obviously it didn't seem like a full normal crowd, but it definitely seemed like a good solid amount of people. And I'm sure people are excited to go at this point. But yeah, no, that was a great all-around performance by the Leafs. And McKay, our boy McKay, got a goal. So hopefully that carries forward to the regular season. And I thought too, he had some chances early. He had like one or two big chances early and couldn't score. And just like the hands up in the air, like you asked for a trade. Like shaking my head, man. Poor Ilya.
No, he's a guy. It's like we're all rooting for Ilya Mikheyev. You know, we all like to rip on him and he's missing breakaways and missing point blank chances, but we're all tough on the guy because he creates so much separation with his speed. He's so explosive. And if he can just find a way to score some damn goals here, like the Leafs have a very, very good player on their hands who's not making that much money. So again, he asked for a trade in the offseason. He's in the final year of his contract. He's going to want to come through in a big way this season in a depth role and maybe even in the top 6 for this Leafs team.
Yeah.
But Lepore, I completely agree with you just in terms of like the total team performance. And again, call us, idiots for, getting so excited about the preseason. But when you're like consistently like out shooting teams, and for the most part, this entire preseason, it's been the Leafs MO now in the entire Keefe era where they control the play, they outshoot, they outchance the other team. But it's good to see when you have, your B lineup or your C lineup, all these AHL guys, and they're playing the exact same way. And guys are stepping up, they're making plays, they're popping off the screen. Like the Cini kid, I was like, holy shit, where did this come from? And again, he's obviously not going to be on the team this year, but it's like, it's good to know that there's guys in the organization who have that ability. And to me, honestly, the future looks bright because I think the Leafs have sort of gotten this reputation recently that it's like, okay, all the young guys are up now and their prospects are kind of, so not really, they don't have like an elite prospect group compared to maybe some of the other teams in the league. But honestly, based on what I've seen during the preseason, the Leafs have a pretty deep organization as it stands. Yeah,
it's kind of weird. It's been kind of weird for the last couple of years because the Marlies have been shit. So, I mean, you see these guys and they're contributing. So hopefully the Marlies can have a nice season as well.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we'll track that. And again, the final roster hasn't been decided yet. I'm sure by the time our next podcast comes out, the opening day roster will be set in stone as the Leafs take on the Habs October 13th in the first game of the regular season at Scotiabank Arena. All right, so that does it for that. And I guess one other thing I wanted to mention, Lepore, just really quickly, the Leafs power play 7 for 22 in the preseason, operating at 32%. So
in early regular season form, as we know.
Exactly. So I couldn't move on to our next topic before mentioning that the Leafs power play looks pretty good. Again, is it
number one in the league,
cliff?
Right? Yeah.
It could fall off a cliff like last season, but it's good to see that they have recognized how awful it was last year and they are trying to make changes, and they have made changes. And once we see the last preseason game, which is probably going to be like a dress rehearsal for the regular season, we'll probably have an even better look at the power play and see all the big guns out there together. But again, great to see operating at 32%. But that does it for that. Lepore, it is now time to move on to All or Nothing.
Ugh.
The Leafs Amazon docuseries, 5 episodes. I binged it not too long ago. Same with Lepore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we both have our thoughts. Lepore, I'm going to throw things to you first. Give me your just general take after watching the 5 episodes, what you thought of the Amazon docuseries.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a huge Bruins fan, and he asked me if I watched it. And I'm like, yeah, I plowed right through it. And he just responds with like, why would you do that to yourself? And I said, bud, remember the title of our podcast? He goes, the good one. But I mean, I thought it was pretty well done. I got in a discussion with another friend about it. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't think it was as good as remember like the HBO 24/7s they'd always do. Like there was the Flyers Rangers one, there was the Penguins Capitals one. I remember those two both being very good, very, very good. And I didn't think it was on the same level as those. But at the same time, I kind of caught myself thinking, well, the coolest part about those was when you saw the players away from the rink. Like I remember there was one scene where like Lundqvist just like jumps in his Maserati and goes to meet John McEnroe to like play like guitar together. And it's like, well, that's the stuff you really want to see. But at the same time, comparing it to All or Nothing, the guys couldn't really do stuff like that because of COVID. So kind of disappointing from that regard. All in all, I thought it was pretty clear from the get-go that there were certain concerns at the top of the organization from the like looking at this team, and like little words, little phrases being said throughout the 5 episodes, like leading up to the loss to Montreal. The management and coaching staff had fears. They had fears, and you can see with the intensity of Keefe. You could see with like, Dubas's little reactions. They knew that this team like was fragile. I'll say it. They were fragile. And there was one scene with Paul McLean. I think it was after they lost game 6 where he just, in fact, I totally forgot Paul McLean was the assistant coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, former coach of the
Same
Sens.
here.
Yeah.
Until I watched
we have Paul.
the
Yeah. We have
doc,
Paul
and I was
McLean.
like, oh, Paul McLean is on the coaching staff.
Totally forgot. And he used the word demons. He's like, this team has demons in their closet, under their bed. Everywhere they look, there's demons. So it's just like, I don't know. Maybe it's kind of we should feel happy that the management and coaching staff felt the same thing that the fans were feeling. And with that loss, you would think that the feelings we had match that of those who actually are employed by the Toronto Maple Leafs. So again, I enjoyed it. Like I'm a geek for this stuff. So like I enjoyed watching like some of the behind the scenes stuff. There were some great scenes with like the coaching staffs and Shanny. But I didn't like the way it ended.
Neither did I. I thought it was a weak ending. Like obviously we knew what was going to happen, but it kind of just like ended abruptly.
Yeah.
And they didn't show us any of the aftermath and maybe what some of the players were going through and how they felt. It just
or like
sort
talk
of
about this season or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just sort of ended, and it's like, all right, see everybody next year. So I felt like they could have gone a little bit more in depth on that. But going back to what you said, Lepore, about the organization having fears, one thing that really stuck out to me in the documentary, it was about like 12 games into the season. The Leafs were top of the North Division, playing well, one of the top teams in the NHL record-wise. And Sheldon Keefe, I believe it was in one of his conversations with Dubas. And I loved when Keefe would walk into Dubas's office because you just felt like you were finally a fly on the wall. Yeah. I loved all the scenes. Anytime I saw Keefe walk into Dubas's office, I'm like, all right, some shit's going down. It's time to pay attention here. But one thing that really stuck out to me, and again, it wasn't just in Dubas's office. I think Keefe even mentioned this like during practice at some point, or even to some of the other veterans. He's like, we're not scoring playoff type goals.
Yeah.
He's like, we're scoring, but we're not scoring the type of goals that's going to make us successful in the playoffs. And he saw this like very, very early. And that really stuck out to me because what was the issue in the playoffs against Montreal? And even going back to last season against the Columbus Blue Jackets in the qualifying round, it wasn't the Leafs defense. It wasn't the Leafs goaltending. It was the Leafs inability to score goals in high leverage, high pressure situations. And it came back to bite them in the ass again. Matthews and Marner, as we know, it's well documented, 1 goal combined in 7 games against Montreal. And Keefe is like, we got to be throwing pucks on net and scoring dirty goals and not just scoring these pretty goals where Matthews and Marner are going tape to tape, cross ice, bar down. And he noticed that very early on. So that really stuck out to me in the documentary. But yeah, just in terms of my general thoughts, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, behind the scenes look at the team. Again, I think doing it during COVID kind of, restricted them from doing some of the things like you mentioned that you saw in the HBO docuseries with, the Capitals and Penguins and the Flyers and all the other teams that have been in it. But there were some really cool scenes. I like the scene with Muzzin and Hall in Muzzin's backyard
golfing,
when they were golfing. That was a pretty cool setup. I thought Sheldon Keefe was one of the stars of this entire series. Like I would actually say he was the star.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Would you agree with that?
I was telling somebody that I think often when we watch something, we quickly try to identify like who the main character is. And sometimes it's not as obvious as we think it is. And to me, it was clear right away that Keefe was the main character. Like he was the center of the show. 100% agree.
Yeah, I thought he was awesome. Now, maybe you could say he was a little bit overboard, dropping F-bombs and just how crazy, aggressive he would be sometimes with how he talks and how he would communicate with some of the players. But I loved Sheldon Keefe.
That meeting with Steve Briere was amazing.
Oh, that was awesome.
When he just told him to fuck off. He's kind of letting Briere's letting Freddie off the hook for some goals. Like, oh, what's he supposed to do if it goes in off this guy and off this guy's ass and this and that? And Keefe just turning to him and saying, "Oh, it fuck off." Like I don't want to hear that right now. Like, we lost. He's got to make a save. Like, enough's enough now. That's a big thing too. It's like, if anyone, and fitting that he signed his extension, I don't think anyone can kind of, even in Leafland, not that I think people dislike Keefe, but it's like, no, now he's really liked. I really and truly think he's liked. One thing from the show that I thought was kind of cool, and I don't know if it was done on purpose, but there were two things specifically. One, that one scene where they show Bogosian with his on FaceTime with his family, and I think he mentions he's missing his daughter's birthday party. And then there were other scenes with Mikheyev, how he wasn't happy with how things were going and the opportunities. So just kind of it was kind of cool to see that these things were happening during the season, because as we all know, Bogosian, a big reason why he didn't re-sign with Toronto was because of the restrictions in Canada. And then you see him and he's like, yeah, he can't see his family. So it was getting to him. So maybe he made that decision a long time ago. And then with Mikheyev again, yeah, this didn't come out of nowhere. I should say, us finding out that he asked for a trade. I'm sure Dubas wasn't as shocked as maybe we thought he was, because these conversations were had about how he was unhappy and how he wanted a better opportunity with the scorers. So I thought that stuff was pretty cool. One thing was too, the scene with Thornton and Ehlers against the Jets.
Oh, I loved it. Thornton was just going off.
Yeah, that was one of those scenes that made the show. And to me, that was the scene that kind of showed this is why they signed Joe Thornton. Like I said, when they signed Thornton, if you love it, you're overthinking it. If you hate it, you're overthinking it. It's a guy essentially leagueman. Just a guy on a low contract who's just going to provide some leadership. You could see in the show that guys love being around Joe Thornton, and he knows how to be the right guy in the room. And in that example on the ice, who doesn't want that? So the show definitely changed how I look at the year of Joe Thornton with the Toronto Maple Leafs, because clear to me it's that's why they got him without question.
Yeah, I did like some of the Thornton scenes, and yeah, it was clear that they were gravitating towards him as one of the veteran leaders. He's obviously very well respected around the league. I felt the same sort of energy when they picked up Nick Foligno at the trade deadline.
Oh yeah.
And he came in and you could just tell he immediately commanded a ton of respect. Yeah. And everyone knew that even though he had been playing on Columbus his entire, for the last number of years, he immediately comes in and it's all right, he's already one of our top 3 leaders. Yeah. And obviously he was the captain of the Blue Jackets and he has a ton of experience in that role, but it was cool to see him, take that and run with it and realize that the group was looking towards him as one of their leaders. Because one thing that stuck out to me when Tavares went down in game 1 of the playoffs, and you kind of got an inside look at the dressing room. Once Tavares was gone, it was Foligno who was stepping up and saying things, Spezza. Like, if you notice, now, one thing, Lepore, that kind of hit me is like, I'm like, no wonder they didn't pick Auston Matthews to be the captain of this team, because Matthews is not a vocal guy. When you're looking at some of those behind the scenes in the locker room moments, Matthews is not the guy stepping up and, talking to the team. And there were moments, I believe, intermission of game 7, Matthews said a couple of things, but it just seemed like he was taking more of a back seat in terms of the vocal leadership. Whereas some of the other guys like Foligno, Spezza, even Tavares, like they were the guys that were a little bit more vocal. So I found that interesting as well.
Mentioning Matthews, like what this show clearly portrayed to me anyway, was like, to me, he's just the definition of a star. Like the way he carries himself, his personality, his demeanor, of course, his performance on the ice. They spat it out. Like these numbers you forget about. He had a stretch of 17 games where he had 17 goals. Like incredible pace. But just, yeah, like he's the right superstar for that environment too. Because you could tell, like, it felt like to me, like things don't really get to Matthews. Like, yeah, he's confident in his abilities, and he's there to play hockey and score goals and be the man. And you hear reporters say all the time he wants to be the man. So it was fitting to me. Something that I thought was the most Toronto Maple Leafs thing of this documentary, and when you sit back and look at it and take your Leaf hat off for a second, you kind of can't help but find it quite humorous. That speech Keefe gave, game 5, going into overtime, you could have shown me that and told me that was a speech written by some crazy movie writer for Al Pacino in a new movie, because it was incredible.
That was the moment of the series. For hands down, moment of the entire Amazon series.
And like the editing they did, I think there was like a little music in the background. They're showing all the faces. They're showing his face, just like screaming, giving guys shit, but at the same time pumping them up. And to me, what's so hilarious is that if in fact it was a movie and you were watching it, you would just envision Matthews going out there and blasting home the winner, and the team wins.
The team overcomes adversity.
Yeah, this gets big over the fairy tale. What a comeback. And then just less than a minute in, Galchenyuk giveaway and Keefe flipping out angry, and that's a wrap. It was just, to me, it was funny. Like I laughed at just being like the hands up in the air, like, oh my God, the Toronto Maple Leafs, like impossible. Like only the Leafs would find a way. Like, how did they lose? Almost like people I remember throwing out the stat that they were the first team ever to have 2 consecutive 2 or more goal comebacks in the playoffs and lose both games. And like, I mean, that's a Toronto Maple Leafs stat.
Only the Leafs.
Only the Leafs. But then it's like, then you see that and it's like, it just adds to it. Like, how did they lose? Like after that speech, after that emotion, after that comeback, home ice, how did they lose?
I can't believe it, because that was my first reaction as well. When I saw that speech, I was ready to run through a brick wall for Sheldon Keefe.
Oh my God.
And the players, they were ready to run through a brick wall for Sheldon Keefe, because so think about just the timeline of things from that game 6. So the Leafs are down by 2 goals. They tie the game in the 3rd period to send it to overtime. No one thought they were going to come back in that game because they got outplayed in game 6. Sheldon Keefe in the locker room delivers the greatest speech in the history of sports. Maybe not, I don't want to go that far, but it was a damn good speech. Okay, like Lepore said, you can just envision Al Pacino making that speech in a blockbuster Hollywood movie. And the team goes out there, was out shooting the Habs 13-1 in overtime. So
I know, his speech
were running
worked
through that brick wall for Sheldon Keefe. And then on that second shot for the Habs, Dermott with that stupid giveaway onto the stick of Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and it's all up in flames. And it's only the Toronto Maple Leafs who can pull off something like that.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
So,
I know.
so that was super frustrating. But yeah, that to me was my favorite part of the series. Also, another thing with Keefe, I found it really cool. And obviously, this is really bad for one of the guys involved in this scene. But when he called out Jimmy Vesey,
Oh yeah, that was
cool
interesting. Eh?
where he
The whole
just pulls
VC thing was cool.
Yeah, he pulls him aside at practice and he's like, Jimmy, man, like we brought you in for a reason. And I'm going to be honest with you, you're just not showing it.
Yeah.
Like we need more. And you could tell like VC was like he was rattled. He's like, he was like, oh, well, I played well in the last game. He's like, I don't care. And then Keith's like, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he's like, I don't care about one or two good moments. Like I got to see it from you every game. And if you can't find a role on this team, and then he has the private conversation. VC gets pulled into Dubas's office and Dubas tells him that they got to place him on waivers. So that was just cool to see the behind the scenes of how that works. And I'm sure that goes on with other players as well, right? When they're not delivering what the team expects them to deliver, I'm sure they get called out just in the exact same way.
Yeah, it was cool to see. Or what I found very interesting, I should say, was when Dubas was talking about VC and he's bringing up how he was very highly touted. The Leafs were one of the teams interested in him. He went to the Rangers, ended up with the Sabres, and kind of bringing up it's the time now to say you have been getting the short end of the stick. Like now's the time to prove yourself. So I find it kind of cool. Dubas was getting in his head thinking this kid thinks it's everyone else's fault, not his own. And I again, something comedic. Shanahan's reaction when Dubas told him that he was claimed by Vancouver.
Yeah.
He didn't even flinch. He's like, oh, I'm surprised. And scene. That was it. And he just kept walking. Oh wow. So it kind of shows Shanny didn't think much of the player himself. But yeah. That was definitely kind of a cool random behind the scenes thing. To me, I would say, and I'll get your take on this one. One thing I found a lot of satisfaction in the documentary was that last scene. We already mentioned, we wish they would have shown more, the response and build up to maybe this year. But that last scene where they show Matthews and Marner sitting in their stalls, and Marner's got his head back in his stall, and Matthews has got his face in his hands, and you can tell they're completely distraught. Marner's bawling his eyes out. The kid's full on bawling his eyes out. So to me anyway, to a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I felt good about that. Because we all sit here and say athletes don't care and whatever, and why do we care? But at least it showed to me that these guys were devastated by this. They understand the importance. They know what it means to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They get the pressures. They know the expectations people have on this group. So I remember there was, I think was it a Gatorade commercial years back where it showed the Penguins after they lost to the Red Wings, their bench, and Crosby's sitting on the ice with his legs out. And then he does a voiceover and says, I felt terrible in this picture. I never want to be in this picture again. Remember the way you feel. Remember the way you felt when you lost that way. So at least I can hope that, I know it sounds kind of corny and whatever, but they learn from this in the way that feeling we had, I never want to get that feeling ever again. It was embarrassing. It was completely and utterly embarrassing. And one thing's for sure, I was going to say, the Leafs could be up 3-0 in a playoff series, say this season. I couldn't even fathom the idea of them being confident. And confident, arrogant, I should say, no, guys, if anyone can blow this, it's going to be us. Let's do it. So I kind of feel good about that. And especially seeing that scene with the two of them, because there's no way they're taking their foot off the pedal. There's no way. So I thought that scene meant a lot. And it was something kind of positive for Leafs fans to see.
I thought that was great to see when you have your two best players, the stars of the team, two of the stars of the NHL, to be that dejected after the loss. Yeah, as a Leaf fan, I think that was great to see because, sometimes I think, people make up shit about Marner and Matthews and even other stars in the league, right? That don't come through when it matters most. And usually a narrative that gets attached to guys like that is that they don't care, that, they've signed their contracts. They're young guys. Like, they couldn't care less if they're out in the first round, second round, if they don't make the playoffs. But these guys clearly give a shit, and they give a shit to the nth degree. I really do believe that. And again, maybe Matthews and Marner aren't like the best leaders on the team. They lead in other ways, but I'm just talking about like vocal leadership. Like you saw, right? It was like I said, it's guys like Tavares and Spezza, Thornton, even Foligno. Like, they were kind of the vocal leaders who were stepping up in those big moments. But Matthews and Marner knew that even though they don't have the C on their chest, really that was all riding on them. And they let the team down, they let the organization down, and they let all of Leafs Nation down. And you could see just how devastated they were by that. And I would like to believe as well, Lepore, that this is going to be a huge learning experience, and hopefully maybe the last learning experience, because if you go and you look back at some of the other losses, this Habs loss was the most devastating.
Yeah.
In terms of all the playoff losses, like, the Bruins series, you can give them a break for that. Even the Columbus series in the COVID year with the coaching change, like, the team wasn't totally,
they're weird.
It was a very weird season, and that team just wasn't as good as the team we saw last season. But this loss to the Habs was just a disaster. So you would hope that these guys are going to come back strong and hopefully learn from that. And when they're in a similar moment, if they find themselves up in a series 3-1, 3-0, that they're going to do everything in their power to end that series as soon as possible. So yeah, I agree. That I thought was awesome to see.
Yeah.
Any other scenes that stick out to you? One scene that I liked was the secret coffee club.
Oh my God.
How they carry that chest on the road with like all their coffee machines and the coffee beans. And then I love Jack Campbell. He's like, I'm so intimidated by the coffee club. He's like, I just want to get my Tims in the lounge. I can't be involved in this.
As the coffee drinker I am, if I played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'd definitely be involved in that coffee club. But fun things, right? Like to do in the locker room. And people make fun of that stuff, but that's like the stuff that builds like team spirit and those lines about feeling like a family. One character I do wish we would have seen more of. This guy, I think Bruno could have been the star of the show. Antonio Quinteri, the team hairstylist. Oh, clearly a paisan. What a personality.
Loved
like it was just so, and I can say this as an Italian, and Bruno will agree as an Italian. Could there have been any more of like a stereotypical Italian hairstylist? This guy's like this like super attractive male with like long flowing hair, dressed 10 out of 10. Just like the way he holds the hair and the scissors is just like he's a total artist. I was like laughing my ass off.
Oh, that was hilarious. Like that is like you said, prototypical like Italian hair. Like if you told me that the Leafs had an Italian hairdresser who cut their hair every day, like he's named like literally Antonio. The exact person I would have thought of in my head.
What's the over under on that for him being from Woodbridge? It's got to be pretty high, right?
Oh man, there's like a 94% chance from Woodbridge.
Yeah, at least, man, at least.
Yeah,
good little tidbit in the show.
But yeah, that was hilarious. I love that. I'm just thinking about maybe a couple other scenes. Oh, one thing that stuck out to me, I love the scene with Spezza and his family. And as soon as I saw Spezza's
his dad was awesome.
I saw Spezza's dad smile, and I'm like, okay, this is where Jason Spezza gets that massive smile from, his laugh. So that was cool to kind of see behind the scenes and just to see, that Spezza's family is very happy that he plays for the Leafs. They're Leaf fans. They're obviously, really excited. And now, this is going to be Spezza's first opportunity really that he's like a main cog on this team and playing in front of his friends and family in Toronto because the first season was a disaster with Babcock and then COVID hits. So I think this is going to be a really special season upcoming here for Jason Spezza.
Yeah, fans in the building. And like, let's face it now, like it was kind of weird when Spezza first joined the Leafs, like let's call a spade, but now going into his third year, we're going to get a full season. Jason Spezza is a Toronto Maple Leaf, man. Like I think to the point now, I mean, like he had a lot of success in Ottawa. That team went to the final. But there is that thing in me now that no, Jason Spezza, like I'm not saying he wasn't a Sen or I mean his time in Dallas, but like I'll have serious like pictures of him in my head as a Toronto Maple Leaf.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't love Jason Spezza from Leafs
Yeah.
Nation? He has won everybody over with just the way he plays, his leadership, his personality. You got to love Spezza.
Yeah, guys like that, man.
One last thing before we move on, Lepore. I was disappointed that we didn't see too much of Morgan Riley.
Yeah,
I thought that he should have been a more central figure because I know that he has a lot of personality. So it was weird not to see him at all. Now, again, this thing is edited. There's things that are going to get chopped out of the show based on the flow, based on the story Amazon is trying to tell. And who knows, maybe some of these guys and their agents and representatives got involved and said, no, this scene has got to go. So those are other things that maybe we don't know. But I found it really weird that we didn't get enough of Morgan Riley. And then also we didn't see any of TJ Brody.
That was like a joke on Twitter. It was like a joke on Twitter, like, does Brody play for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because like you didn't even like see him. Like there wasn't even like a blip. And then he doesn't get points, so you're not going to see him in the highlights. But yeah, like not even a quick interview.
Yeah.
This well, like they could have done like a segment, I'm from Toronto, show that footage of him like
exactly
when he was a kid hitting the targets.
When he was like 12 years old at the ACC.
But again, like you said, guys are different personalities. They have agents. So who knows where that decision was made? Or I mean, maybe Amazon had the material and they didn't use it. One thing, and I'll ask you this. So it was 5 episodes. I assume the plan was to do more the deeper they went. Is that
I would imagine. Like, I think, let's say they maybe planned for like 8. Yeah. They probably thought, okay, we can like fly through the regular season in the first, let's say 3 episodes. And then the last 5 would be the playoff run and all the storylines from that. But yeah, I think Amazon's original plan just completely went down the drain.
Sucks for them.
Choked against Montreal.
And that popped in my head as well, kind of like with this Brody thing. Like maybe there were segments made with him or other guys and other stories, but they just couldn't cram it all into 5 episodes. Where if the plan was to make it say 7 or 8, and then maybe they could have slid that stuff in. But Toronto Maple Leafs screwing Amazon like they screw their fans all the time. So par for the course.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing new there. So yeah, I mean, all in all, I thought it was really well done. There were some things that maybe we would have liked to see. But for the most part, I thought Amazon did a really nice job. Anything else you want to add before we move on to the next topic here, Lepore?
Again, it just served as like a reminder of like a bunch of great things that happened throughout the season, but also like gave us a behind the scenes look at like shitty things. Like when you see Foligno crawling on all fours, it's just like the head shake. And then you get reminded of the Tavares incident. Just bad. The other thing too was weird is that like, remember how big of a story like Freddie was last year? Like, why isn't he playing well? Is he injured? What are we going to do? Like, remember Leafs fans, like before that Campbell breakout win streak, we kind of thought we were screwed. Like we were scrambling in our head, like, oh, we don't have a goalie for the playoffs.
And you could see even management was kind of scrambling a little bit. Like even picking up Riddick at the deadline.
Riddick trade. Yeah. And they talked about that and that ended up being a complete waste. I don't know what other way to put it because Campbell was fine. I mean, I guess they needed a backup. Freddie was the backup in the playoffs.
Yeah, he was the backup.
Yeah, he was back
playoffs,
by that time. Yeah.
I think they were worried because it's like, Campbell was on that hot streak, but it's like, can we trust the way that he's playing? Is he going to continue this? Like, we need some insurance.
Or
There's
just
this
regression.
Massive question mark over Freddie. No one knows what the hell is going on with this injury. So yeah, that was just a very bizarre situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But and then I guess one other thing I'll bring up because you just put it in my head now was seeing Foligno and the back issue that he was going through. That to me, it gives me, I want to give him more of a pass now because as we know, that trade ended up being a disaster. 1st round pick and 2 fourths for Foligno, did not score a goal. And I believe it was like 12 total games as a Maple Leaf, but just to see how his back completely went out on him. And then like, it brings you back, Lepore, you put all that stuff in perspective. The Leafs lose Tavares, who played 2 minutes in game 1. Foligno's back goes out on him. So he's basically a non-factor in the series, their main trade deadline acquisition. And then what you didn't see in the Amazon doc was also Jake Muzzin missing game 6 and 7 of the Habs series with his torn groin. So you just kind of saw all these things behind the scenes and you're like, man, oh man, like no wonder it was a lot closer than we all thought it would be.
And you're forgetting too, like Bogosian and Hyman were just coming back from their injuries too, and they were not 100%. They show that in the documentary. So
yeah. But anyway, we've moved on.
No one wants to hear excuses though.
Yeah, no more excuses. We've moved on.
We've moved on.
You know, we watched the documentary. We got it out of the way. I hope all of you guys in Leafs Nation have watched the documentary as well, and now you've like cleansed the palate and you're ready for this upcoming season, which hopefully is going to end a lot better than last season ended.
Yeah.
All right. It is time to move on to our final topic of today's show. And this one's big because
very big.
Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators, at last check, for all I know, by the time this goes up, he's going to sign a contract. But as of now, Brady Tkachuk has not signed a contract extension with the Ottawa Senators. Now, the latest report from Elliot Friedman is that the Senators obviously want to sign Tkachuk for 7 or 8 years on a long-term deal, but Brady Tkachuk does not want to sign a long-term deal right now. This dude wants to sign a bridge deal, whether it's 2 or 3 years. Another thing Elliot Friedman mentioned specifically was that the salary cap is expected to go up approximately 3 years from now, where he'll be able to cash in even more. So it's crazy. Like the season's about to start. Brady Tkachuk, one of the most high-profile RFAs, has yet to sign. So Lepore, man, what's your take on this situation?
People are getting tense here in Ottawa, Bruno. People are getting tense. Here's this kid, came in, impressed right away. Everyone assumes he's going to be named captain when he does sign that deal. So news flash, everyone, the Leafs players aren't the only ones who hold out on their contracts. But it's a tough one because, and maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong for the sake of the sport, I don't see either side budging. I really and truly don't. Like, I mean, I guess it's got to happen eventually. But like you mentioned how, okay, he wants the short-term deal. I could see Ottawa, like based on the guys they have coming up, Norris is going to have to sign. Stützle is going to have to sign in 2 years. That's opening up a lot of risk for Ottawa, man. If they give him a short-term deal, number one, because they don't want that to become the trend of what guys ask for. They want to put their foot down as an organization, say this is how we do things. But also cash-wise, it's like if they give him, say, like similar to his brothers, like 3 years at 7.5 or something like that. Let's say they do that, and a lot of people think Josh Norris is a superior player to Brady Tkachuk. So what if Norris lights it up? What if Stützle lights it up? Then what? Like, they're not going to take long-term deals if they saw Brady got this bridge deal. And then there's the other side of the Tkachuk family being the Tkachuk family. Word has it that the Sens offered Shabbat's deal, the 8x8. They're not going to take that. They're not going to take that. So it'd be easy to say, like, hey, we're going to see a compromise of, say, a 5-year deal or something like that. But I don't know, man. Like, if this drags, and again, maybe we'll get the alert like right after the podcast ends that he signed. But if this drags out into the regular season and deeper into the regular season, I wouldn't be surprised. And like, I will say, like, Melnyk is involved with this team. Like, whether people want to believe it or not, it's clear that he's a voice that has impact, or like the voice of impact. And I think it's almost to the benefit of Ottawa this time to have that kind of personality, because I can see him being stubborn and like, I'm not giving in. Like, no. And like, the argument I always make is, at the end of the day, the team really and truly has the leverage, and especially in Ottawa's case too, because let's say, like, comparing it to the Nylander situation the Leafs dealt with, the Leafs were like a very competitive team hoping to be a team that could go on a playoff run. That sucks to not have like your star Swedish winger, right? Whereas the Sens, like, even for this year, like, I don't think their expectations are that high. So if you're Ottawa, like, there's no urgency to win now. And how I made the point before, but how the leverage being on the team side, okay, Brady, you want whatever deal you want. Well, if you take a full year off and you don't get paid, you're never going to catch up total wise to what you lost on that deal, like on that 1 year. If it's 6, 7, 8 million, like you're not getting that back. So I don't know, man. Like I wish I had an answer of like where I think this is going to go and how I think it's going to end up, but I don't, because like I don't really see either side budging. And if I'm being perfectly clear, that's a compliment to the Ottawa Senators, saying like they're not going to budge, and their fans should be proud of that, especially with the way this team's rolling with their good young players. And then on the Tkachuk side, I mean, maybe give them credit because they understand the business and they understand their value. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. It's going to be a blast to see what happens. And if he does sign, if they do decide to give him the C, and then how the fans take it, depending on what he signs for, and then the pressure that's going to come with whatever contract he gets. So it's going to be fun. I'm sure we're going to talk about this again, 100%.
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting situation because I don't know if anyone knows how long this is going to drag out, because DJ Smith, head coach of the Senators, in another report that I saw recently, he said, listen, the team, we're ready to start the season without Brady Tkachuk, and we're expecting to start the season without Brady Tkachuk. So who knows how long this is going to last? Clearly, you know, he wants that 8x8 type deal, maybe a shade under that, maybe a shade over that. And, you know, or sorry, the Senators want that. But Tkachuk, I mean, he's looking even further down the line. He wants to sign that bridge deal, like you said, Lepore, whether it's, 3 years, 7.5, and then cash in on the next contract, similar to what we just saw with Braden Point. Now, completely different situation. Like Braden Point, much better player, had a Stanley Cup under his belt, a 40-goal season under his belt. Tkachuk is a different player, so I don't think he's going to necessarily cash in the same way, but he wants to go down a similar path. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting. It seems like the entire Tkachuk family's on the same page here, because Matthew Tkachuk is essentially looking to do the exact same thing. So, I mean, and the Senators, they got some decisions to make, because like you said, Josh Norris on the final year of that, what is it, $925,000 contract. So they're going to have to lock him in. Batherson is locked up now for the next 6 years. For a 6-year, just under $30 million contract. So these are their cornerstones. And then obviously Tim Stützle, who I believe, and I think Lepore, you've echoed the same feelings, that he's the star guy.
Yeah,
like he's the guy
you're
building this team around. If you're going to give out like one of those mega deals too. Now, again, we got to see how Tim Stützle plays this season. If he takes the next step, elevates into that tier of like, a holy shit, this guy's going to be one of the stars in the league, which I think he has in him, but it's also going to hurt Tim Stützle if he doesn't have a chance to play with Brady Tkachuk. So, I mean, we're going to have to see how that plays out. But Lepore, if you were to guess, like, do you think this ends in the Senators just caving in and saying, okay, we'll give you your bridge deal?
If I had to guess, yeah.
I think so too.
If I had to guess, like eventually it's like, oh God, like, yeah. And again, if they do eventually, like, again, they still have him protected, they can still trade him. But I'll say it, man. And I say this as a Leaf fan. I say this as like a Canadian hockey fan. This is such a thing that would happen to a Canadian team. If Brady Tkachuk played for the Boston Bruins, we would not be here right now. If he played for the Tampa Bay Lightning, we would not be here right now. If he played for one of the California teams, we would not be here right now. And I'd love for someone to explain to me why, but like, I just don't see him in that room with the Bruins brass saying it's a bridge deal or nothing. It's like, no, Brady, we're going to have a negotiation. And that's what kind of irks me about some of these athletes now, where I understand you wanting everything. Like, I totally get that. You're entitled to that. You're an employee and you can ask for what you want, but it's a complete disregard of a negotiation now. Like, it's just these players trying to hold the teams hostage. And that sucks. Like even now, I'm totally old school. The fact that this has gotten this far, you're not captain. No way what you're putting this organization through, having to go through a training camp without one of their most important players. I don't care what deal you get. You could sign 8 years or whatever. Now you are not getting the captaincy. But I mean, again, call me old school, and that's not going to happen because the team's got to cave and make these little players happy. And
especially a team like the Senators, right?
The Sens too.
Issues attracting star players and keeping star players.
Yeah. And that's where I think pressure could fall on the organization, just because like the reputation they have with like guys leaving. And again, it's not a big market. They don't get like free agents running here, but it's tough, man. Like, it's kind of like, I feel bad for the Sens.
It's crazy. Think about it. It's like the Senators are saying, here, Brady, we want to give you an 8-year deal for $64 million. Like, please sign right now. And he's like, nope, I want to sign a bridge deal because I'm going to come back to the table in 3 years and I'm going to ask you guys for $10 million or something like, wild.
This is where you'd love to be a fly on the wall. It's like, okay, so if he turned down 8 times 8, I mean, everything has a number. Okay. So then, okay, Brady, you turned down 8 times 8. And I'm sure this discussion's been had. What would you want on an 8-year deal? Like, what's he going to say? I want 10 million. Like, that's where
he doesn't
like,
deserve that.
That's what I'm like. That's now we're getting ridiculous. Like, compared to other deals in the league. Like, now you're one of the top paid forwards in the league. That's what Jack Eichel makes. Like, Brady, you're Jack Eichel. Like, and that's where it's so ridiculous to me. And there's no negotiation. There's no compromise. There's no view of like the team and the success. It's frustrating, man. It sucks for fans to have to go through this. A good buddy of mine who's a huge Sens fan, just waiting to get a Brady Tkachuk jersey with a C on it. But he's obviously, of course, not going to pull the trigger until it happens. And yeah, it's just, it sucks, man. Like I do feel bad for the Sens and their fans to have to go through this, because here's this guy, people love him. He's a likable guy. He says the right thing. He's polite, unlike his brother who likes to shoot his mouth off. And I can appreciate it. I like his brother as a player and as a person for that matter. But it's just, it sucks, man. It puts fans through the gutter, and it puts fans at each other, and anything that makes fans pick a side, like whether you're the team or the player, like that sucks. They're supposed to be one. Like, no,
yeah, it's a brutal situation. And listen, like, I get it. Like, Brady Tkachuk brings a lot to the table. This guy's, hitting people through the glass. He's one of the leaders in shots on goal and hits every season. He does all the little things. He gets under the opponent's skin. He's tough. He's physical. He's gritty. He can score. But earth to Brady Tkachuk, it's not like he's come into the league and he's, a point per game player or a 30-goal scorer. 22 goals, 21 goals, 17 goals, has never had more than 45 points in his first 3 seasons. And I know last year was only a 56-game season, but it's not like this guy is coming out here and, lighting the league on fire. Like, let's say, name anyone, Auston Matthews or even Jack Eichel, who's essentially been a point-a-game player, right? So it's like,
I'll put it this way. We saw what Pettersson got. Ask the 32 GMs in the league if they could have Tkachuk or Pettersson.
Oh, they're all saying Pettersson.
They're all saying you're getting a number 1 center. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, so that's why I just find that it is getting to the point now where I could see Sens fans maybe starting to turn on him a little bit as
I hope so.
As he is. Like, the longer this goes and the dirtier this gets, this negotiation, you're going to see fans start to turn on him a bit. Maybe not in the same way that Leaf fans were, ready to send Nylander out of town.
I think he's still paying the price for that in the media, like that little thing in us of dislike. But I mean, I love Willie.
Yeah, but we'll see how this plays out. It's going to be one of the most interesting storylines to track heading into the season. And maybe, like I said, we could be a week in, a month in, and maybe he still isn't signed. So we're going to have to keep our eyes on this. And I'm sure the entire hockey world is going to be watching this as well. But Lepore, before we wrap things up, any final thoughts for episode 36?
No, man, just excited for the regular season to start, and excited for our first giveaway, the lucky winner of an authentic Auston Matthews jersey. It's a big day for the Gluttons for Punishment when we give that out. So keep the comments coming, guys. And like I said, Bruno and I will go through them. We'll pick one, and we're going to make a Leafs fan very happy out there.
Lepore said it. Once again, if you would like to enter the Gluttons for Punishment Auston Matthews jersey giveaway, you must like this video, subscribe to the channel, and then you have to go in the comment section down below, leave your Instagram handle, tell us where you're from, and tell us what move you would make if you were GM of the Leafs for one day. You have to do all of those things. And once you see a heart on your comment from the Gluttons for Punishment YouTube channel. That shows us, or that should show you that we have seen your comment and that you are entered in the giveaway. So once again, good luck to everyone. And that is going to do it for episode 36 of the Gluttons for Punishment podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it so much if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is dropping some new content. In our next episode, we will be releasing the winner of the Auston Matthews jersey. It's going to be awesome. And we're getting closer and closer to the start of the regular season. So stay tuned for episode 37. It is going to be a good one. All right. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
妈妈给他这有肉。